Hey guys, Problem1701 here, and today we're going to talk about Blake's 7, switching up a little bit, and my interesting history with Blake's 7. But before that, I did want to talk about, I've had a couple people lately ask me if I had a P.O. box, and the fact I had a couple people ask in like a 3-day period, I figured maybe I should look into this. So I decided to take the plunge, and I've decided, I'm really nervous bringing this up. To get a P.O. box. I have secured one. I still have to go in and finalize some paperwork, but by the time you guys see this, I should have it finalized and I'll know what my P.O. box number is. That will be down in the description below if there is anybody who wants to send me anything, which it just boggles my mind that there might be people who want to send me stuff. Boggles my mind. I have patrons. I absolutely love that. That makes my day. So there will be my P.O. box down in the description below. Keeping in mind I am in the States and I have no idea what it costs just for a private citizen to ship something to me at this point overseas. Don't spend a ridiculous amount of money. I'm sure most of y'all have more important things to put that toward. I love the fact that people want to send me stuff, and feel free to. I would love to have it, but I don't want people to spend a silly amount of money to do it. More important things going on in the world. But it's there if anybody wants to. I also have my Amazon wish list in my descriptions now as well. I created one of those not too long ago, mostly with some first and second Doctor stuff and some Sonic Screwdriver replicas on it. In case there's anybody wants to go that route and send me something through Amazon as well. Though it is it's a list on the American Amazon, like actual Amazon.com, because each country's Amazon is like its own separate entity. Because I have an Amazon account from Amazon UK, one for like Amazon Japan, and one for the US Amazon, which is just Amazon.com, at least here in the States. So mine is routed through the US one. Whether or not my UK subscribers have that or not, I don't know. But it's there. Enough with the shilling. Let's get on to talking about Blake 7. Blake 7 is an interesting case for me because it's a TV show I've known about since I was very little. When I first started watching Doctor Who back in the 80s when I was a child, it ran on our public broadcasting system, what we call PBS here in the States. And they would not only show episodes of Doctor Who, but they would show other stuff like Are You Being Served and LOLO, which are also two shows I'm very fond of. And they would show Dark Shadows sometimes, and they would also show Blake's 7. And that was another thing I had to double check actually before I started doing this. I was having to remember if it does have the apostrophe S. I couldn't remember if it was Blake 7 or Blake's 7. And I was pretty sure it was Blake's 7 because, you know, it's like his group. And it's really weird because the S's can run together so easily that you don't get those two S's. But I'm sitting here thinking, I believe it's Blake's 7 with apostrophe S. So I typed it in real quick just to make sure I had it right without seeing any pictures because I'll get to that. But yes, Blake 7 is what popped up, so I was pretty sure I had that right. The reason why I bring that up is I know it's a show I watched when I was little, much like I did Doctor Who, but I don't have very good memory of it. It's very vague. I remember more my uncle and I talking about it, because my uncle was kind of the dad figure in my life. I've talked about him a couple times before on the channel. He's the one who kind of got me into the sci-fi stuff I like. The reason I like Doctor Who, Star Wars, Star Trek, all that kind of stuff. Babylon 5. It's the one who got me watching Babylon 5, and I love Babylon 5. He's the one who bought me most of my toys growing up. He bought me my Nintendo, my Super Nintendo. So kind of the reason why my childhood was as happy as it was. And I remember us talking about Blake 7, because I remember him talking about Blake. He was identifying Blake in it. And then I'm like, oh, okay, so that one's Blake. And he's like, yeah, even though, you know, he's not even in most of the show. I remember my uncle remarking that Blake wasn't in the show a lot. Like, apparently he's in, like, the first season, and then he just kind of disappears. Although I've learned since then that he does come back, like, toward the end of the series. And I think it's not just in the final episode. I know he's in the final episode, but I know he comes, I believe he's in a couple other episodes toward the end of the series that he comes back. And I believe he gets killed. Like in the last episode right there. I think he dies in the last episode. Matter of fact, my understanding of the show is it doesn't have a very happy ending. I think a lot of the regulars get killed, or at least some of them, and I think the rest of them get like arrested and captured, because I know they're they're kind of rebels fleeing from like whatever their version of the Galactic Federation is, trying not to get caught. And I think the survivors get caught at the end, if I'm remembering correctly, if I'm understanding correctly. But it's a very bleak ending, kind of like, like a mostly harmless ending, very bleak. The interesting thing is I could have told you, if you had asked me in 1989, hey, have you ever heard of Blake 7? I could have told you, yeah, that's a British sci-fi show, set in space with a very limited budget, a lot like Doctor Who. And I could tell that it's a British show, because British TV shows, especially from the time, it's something about the cameras they use to make them. They have a certain unique look to them that I never really see anywhere else. It's very obviously not an American-made show. I don't really know how to explain it other than, I could look at classic Doctor Who and be like, yes, I could tell this is one of those British shows, not just by how they're talking, but, by the way it looks. Something about the videotape or the camera, it has this look to it that's only it had. American shows didn't have that. So I could look at it, and it's not just Doctor Who. Blake 7, Hello, Hello, Are You Being Served, Blackadder, all of those shows that I like. Since I love Blackadder as well, had that look to them. But the interesting thing is the fact that I could have told you that about the show, space show, kind of like Doctor Who. Back when I was little, if you held up 10 pictures of people and said, hey, 5 of these people were in Blake 7 and 5 weren't, which ones were which? I would be guessing. Because that's how weird it is. I can't really remember what the characters in it looked like. I know I saw it, because I remember my uncle and I watching it, and him talking to me about it as we were watching it when I was very little. But I can't remember. I think, and I purposely didn't look. I was being really careful when I was just making sure I had the name right and that it was Blake 7, not to look at pictures. But I purposely didn't look just so I could talk about this in this video. I'll probably look when I go to do the thumbnail for the video. I think Blake had really curly hair. For some reason, I remember Blake having curly hair. I think it was Blake. For some reason, in my mind, he has curly hair. Maybe, I don't think it was quite brown. I think it might have been more like a dirty blonde, kind of like my hair is, like a dark blonde. I'm trying to remember if maybe there's a reddish tint to it. I'm not sure. But I don't think it was like dark. I don't think it was black hair or dark brown hair. I'm pretty sure it was like a dirty blonde, curly hair. In my mind. I don't know if I'm right. The character, I swear I mainly remember, and again, I don't know if this is how it was or if this is just my memory convincing itself, is I remember another character, a guy, who did have dark brown hair, but it was straight hair, and it parted kind of like mine. It's like parted to one side, and it's like hair sprayed down, you'd almost swear. Like it's a part where you're pretty sure a strong wind's not going to move it. There could be like a tornado coming through and his hair would still look perfectly in place. And I'd swear he's wearing like a black shirt with maybe some white or gray on it. I'm not sure. Maybe some white and gray. I didn't think it was completely black. I think it was mostly black with like a stripe somewhere. Maybe it was just all black. And I'm not even sure if I'm right, but I'd swear he was one of like the main characters. Because I remember seeing episodes with just like him, but not the curly-haired guy, so I'm assuming that's Blake. It was mainly the other guy I remember seeing. And I'm pretty sure one of the main leads was a female. But I think that's more because there was a Doctor Who episode she was in, and I think I remember when I was reading about the Doctor Who episode, they're like, from Blake 7 in parentheses about it. So I'm assuming she was part of the main cast of Blake 7, and that she guest starred in one of the classic Doctor Who's at the time. And I could be totally wrong on all of this. You can let me know in the comments. I don't know. The only reason I bring it up is every now and then somebody in the comments does ask me about Blake 7. Or do you know about Blake 7? And I'm always like, yes, I'm very well aware of Blake 7, but I'm not very well aware of Blake 7. It's really weird. It's the reason why I talk about it in this video is it's so interesting to have a franchise that you have known about for well over 30 years. And that, I could talk to a person, say we were talking about Doctor Who and Blake 7 come up, and be like, yeah. Around in the 80s, space show, Blake wasn't in most of it, yada, yada, yada. But if they actually started talking about episodes, I can't remember the episodes other than I think the ending was a terrible ending and Blake dies. You know, if they started talking about actual characters, I can't tell you anybody else's name. I don't know a single other character's name because it's just a vague memory in my head. Kind of like how some of Classic Who was until I started picking up the DVDs in the early to mid 2000s. Like I remembered some of them, like the Five Doctors, because I saw it 50 million times back in the 80s. But there was a couple of them, like, to give you a perfect example, I've talked before on the channel how the two Doctor Who stories I have earliest memories of are The Ark in Space and Inferno. And The Ark in Space I remembered pretty well. Inferno is an interesting case because there are scenes of Inferno I remembered all the way until I got the DVD back in like the mid 2000s. We're talking around 2004, 2005, 2006. I'm not quite sure at this point. I remembered certain key scenes. Like I remember the Doctor saying those lines about I didn't go forward or backwards in time, but I slipped sideways. I remembered that specifically. I remembered the scene when he's asking them to check Stallman's glove, ask him to take his glove off, and when he takes it off, it's wrapped in bandages. And I remember the Doctor going on about, he's been infected, y'all need to... The interesting thing about that story is, I could have swore it was a Fourth Doctor story. In my memory, it was a Tom Baker story. And like, if you had asked me, even when I was a teenager in the 90s, did you ever see Inferno? I'd be like, yeah, it had Tom Baker in it. And they'd be like, no, it was John Pertwee. And I'd be like, it had Tom Baker in it. I've seen it. So I had specific memories of it. I remember the werewolf things. I remember Stallman turning into it and rubbing people's faces. I mean, I have accurate, sharp, detailed memories of actual scenes in it. I remembered Benton, the other Benton, turning into one of those creatures. But for some reason, in my mind, I swore up and down it was a Fourth Doctor story. Interestingly enough, when I saw the DVD and I saw Pertwee on the cover, I thought they'd made a mistake. I was looking at it like, why is the Third Doctor on the cover? Why does this have Pertwee on it? This is a Fourth Doctor story. And I knew it was the right story because the reason I had picked it up originally, one, the green guy on the cover, and two, it had the Brigadier with the eye patch. And I distinctly remembered the mustacheless, eye-patched Brigadier being the alternate Brigadier. That part stuck in my mind. So I started wondering, is it like a sequel story? And I started looking at the back, and I'm like, no, this... And then I actually bought it, watched it, and realized, how could I remember certain parts of that story so clearly, and yet somehow in my mind, because I was very little. I was under 10, probably around 5, 6, 7 or something when I watched it. How could I have thought it was a Tom Baker story instead of a John Pertwee story? Maybe it's because I saw more of Tom Baker back then. I don't know. So it's interesting how the memory plays tricks like that. And it's pretty much like that with Blake 7. I know I saw episodes of it. I just don't remember them. Like, nothing sticks in my mind for it because I didn't see it as much as Doctor Who at the time. So I just wanted to share that with you because people have asked me about Blake 7 before. And it's a story. I figured some of y'all might find it interesting. It's definitely an odd history to have, for sure. So, that is me talking about my vast knowledge of Blake's 7. I would like to know what you think of Blake's 7 and how amusing you found this video. Other things to do, click the like button, click the subscribe button, click the bell for notifications so you never miss out on another video. I want to give a special shout out to two of my top tier patrons, Stephen Crane and the Fifth Doctor. I really appreciate their support, and I appreciate the support of all of my other patrons as well. Thank you very much, and I want to say thank you to all of my subscribers. I appreciate all of you. If you like what I do and like to contribute to what I do, there is a link to my Patreon down in the description below that gets you access to exclusive videos, early access to videos. I do try to post some videos early for them to watch instead of having to wait since I do them so far ahead sometimes. You also get to vote in polls for stuff that will go up on the channel and stuff that will be exclusive to Patreon. If that's something that interests you, also, again, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I will have my P.O. box down in the description if any of you would like to send me anything. Thank you very much. And my Amazon wish list is there as well. Most importantly, though, thank you for watching.